With a bow and arrow, you could kill someone without looking them in the eye. And the conclusion was that that was the end of bravery. I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say this in an interview. Um, I don't know where he got that. I don't know who the OG person said it, nor if it actually is like a real thing that someone said. Not for lack of trying. Like I tried to look for the OG statement, and then I found this. What is the bow and arrow? It is the beginning of the end. It is a winding path that grows through the roaring road of war. It is a plaything and a triumph in human engineering. It is the first faint stirring of an atom bomb by Clifford D. Seemack. Don't know how to pronounce that. And I don't know who that is. I'm not going to pretend like I'm some learned or read writer. I just write things. But those statements, regardless if they're real, regardless if someone actually said them or they myth, those statements make pretty sweeping inferences and connections. But what the fuck does it have to do with this video? I believe in a sort of micro macrocosm connection in our lives, meaning that if something is true in the macro, like in a larger scale, it's most likely true in like a smaller scale. This doesn't apply all the time, of course. I know this myself, but it's more or less sort of there. And I also believe that history repeats itself until its lesson is learned. And a lot of the times we don't really learn our lesson, as you probably know. Many people in the past have sent other people to war haphazardly without really knowing the consequences for both sides, for all the victims, leaving the people in the ground to suffer the most. And I did some research on this in a PTSD study published in PubMed involving US combat veterans. 31% to 35% of the participants perpetrated what the study called PMIEs, or potentially morally injurious events. Basically, things that are associated with PTSD and depression. Quoting from that study, which I link below, PMIEs were strikingly more prevalent among veterans with probable PTSD and depression, suggesting that veterans without PMIEs are the minority among combat veterans with these disorders. This, to me, points to something that isn't very talked about or isn't talked about very often. It's that many, not most, but a substantial portion of veterans, they reckon with the evil that they've done more than the evil that was done to them. They've realized their own capacity for evil. And that's not nothing. That can really ruin a person, especially when you see it at the extent of war. And I'm not dismissing like the trauma gained from what's done to you or what you see. I'm just saying that evil or harm or an attack you do, no matter how much moral justification you do, is still injurious to you. But do you think the politicians who have never been in a battlefield who are giving these orders to the soldiers have ever felt the injury that these soldiers have felt when, I don't know, killing someone in the battlefield? Because to me, the farther away you are from the killing, the easier it is not to empathize and to tell somebody else to pull the trigger. That's why it's no joke to be in the back end of a gun. But often it's the ones who have no experience doing that at all are the ones who have z- low to zero empathy for the victims on all sides. And it's similar, or if not the same, for people on the internet. People who are far away from the harm that they inflict won't feel it for themselves, or at least, at the moment. In fact, internet trolls get a kick from being endless assholes, like for some reason. And I say endless because they don't feel the immediate effects of doing what they do, versus if they were to do it in real life with the very threatening consequences of meeting face to face. And another thing, a study published in the JAMA Network 2022 titled Association of Cyberbullying Experiences and Suicidality Among Adolescents found that adolescents who experienced cyberbullying were significantly more likely to report suicidal ideation and suicide attempt. A key finding is that youths who were cyberbullied had over 4 times higher odds of attempting suicide than those who weren't. Now, this was taken from students who were willing to participate in the study, which were a lot, but again, these were willing students. Imagine the students that weren't willing to talk about what they were going through or what they had gone through. Imagine the number that includes everyone who actually went through this, not just the ones who were willing to talk. And of course, there are other factors that go into suicidality, all of which are enhanced by the global phenomenon we like to call the internet. People act evil because it's the easier thing to do. Doing good is hard, but doing evil, that's the easiest thing to do. In the case of the internet, it's easier for people to insult others or to act like an asshole because, number one, you're protected by a screen. You're protected basically from the consequences, from the typical fist to face consequences of acting like an asshole. And number two, you can be anonymous. So even the future consequences or the future possible consequences of being an asshole, you avoid. And this is how I understand what I said earlier about the arrow and the bow. If that was the beginning of the end for bravery, if that was the catalyst for killing without consequences to self, and if that was the beginning of the end, then the internet is the middle of the end. But the point of this video isn't to get you to be gloomy or depressed even more or to be discouraged, but to make you help you realize that you need to be relative. There's a plane. Number one, you probably should be pretty stable when going onto the internet. Like, you can't just be in your emotions, in your feelings, pitying yourself when you're on the internet because it will enhance whatever feelings that you get, especially with how modern algorithms are made or designed. And you especially shouldn't let things on the screen affect your real life actions, just like how it isn't recommended to go grocery shopping when you're hungry. Number two, you need to learn how and why people do what they do online. Dark marketing, phishing, AI, all the scams, especially how algorithms work, and especially the dark manipulative tactics that probably your favorite guru uses out there. We need to know what manipulative content is, how they work, how it's made, how they execute it, and why, so that we can, point it out, avoid it, or at the very least know when we're consuming it, and hopefully not get fooled by it, right? And number three, and this is more generally, stop thinking you know everything or that you're always right. A lot of the tension, conflict, and fights and wars that have been going on in the internet is because one side or both sides think they're right and the other person is wrong. More likely than not, because both sides of whatever argument, whatever conflict, whatever conversation, both sides want to win instead of wanting to find or look for the truth. It's completely different dispositions, by the way. So before falling victim or maybe even perpetrating the negative effects and the negative things that we see online, think about whether or not what you're going to do, what you're going to consume, or what you're going to post will add to the negative, already vitriolic environment that the internet is today. Whether or not the arrow that you're knocking is going to kill someone without you having the bravery to even look them in the eye. But that's it for me today. If you like this type of content, tell me why in the comments. I'm not famous enough to not be able to reply anyway. But regardless, thank you so much for watching to the end. I'll see you next time.